All right, today we are diving into one of the wildest stories in modern tech. It's a tale of rivalry, rejection, and ultimately incredible redemption. It starts with Facebook, but it ends with a digital gold rush. So, how exactly does a bitter lawsuit against Facebook lead to the creation of the world's very first Bitcoin billionaires? Well, it all kicks off with two twin brothers and an idea that was destined to change the world, just not in the way they thought it would. All right, let's get into it. Part 1, Zuckerberg's first enemies. Our story starts, believe it or not, back at Harvard. You've got these two identical twins, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, who sue their classmate, a guy you might have heard of, Mark Zuckerberg, claiming he totally ripped off their idea for a social network to build what we now know as Facebook. And guess what? The court actually sided with them. They were awarded a massive $65 million settlement. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. The twins made a decision that absolutely baffled their own legal team. Yeah, you can imagine the scene. Their lawyers are practically begging them, just take the cash. It's $65 million guaranteed money. But the twins, they refused. They insisted on getting their settlement in Facebook stock. They saw a chance to own a piece of the very empire they felt had been stolen right out from under them.
And oh boy, did that bet pay off. We're talking spectacularly. Just a few years later, Facebook goes public. And that stock? It wasn't worth millions anymore. It was worth $500 million. A truly staggering victory, right? But it also painted a giant target on their backs.
See, that victory came with a huge cost. When they tried to take their newfound fortune and invest it in other tech startups, Silicon Valley basically blacklisted them. Door after door slammed shut. Why? Because nobody wanted to partner with Mark Zuckerberg's #1 enemies. They were total outcasts in the very world they had a hand in creating. So that brings us to our next chapter, an unexpected tip in Ibiza. Okay, so you're the Winklevoss twins. You're exiled from the tech world. You're frustrated. You're rich. What do? You go to Ibiza, of course. But this trip wasn't just about partying. A random encounter on a beach was about to change, well, everything. So there they are, on a beach in Spain, when some guy named David Azar recognizes them. And he doesn't pitch them on some hot new app or a cool website. Nope, he pitches them on a brand new kind of money. An idea that back then sounded completely bonkers.
He told them about this thing called Bitcoin, a digital currency that wasn't controlled by any bank or any country. It was totally decentralized. And, kind of like gold, there was a limited supply. Only 21 million coins would ever exist. Now, you got to remember, this is 2012. This idea was revolutionary, almost completely unknown. It was this weird thing floating around the dark corners of the internet.
And that leads us right into the chaos. Part 3, Surviving Crypto's Wild West. The twins were hooked. They decided to go all in. But the world they were jumping into, it was nothing like Silicon Valley. This was unregulated, chaotic, and frankly, incredibly dangerous. We're talking about the digital Wild West, for real. And, look at the scale of their bet. This wasn't just dipping a toe in the water. They went out and bought up 1% of the entire supply of Bitcoin that existed at the time. Can you imagine? It was an absolutely audacious move, putting a massive stake in a technology that basically nobody else believed in. And right away, they were thrown into a total minefield. Just look at this timeline of the early days. In 2013, there's a banking crisis in Cyprus, which actually boosts Bitcoin because people are losing trust in traditional banks. But then, bam, the FBI shuts down the Silk Road dark web market and the price just crashes. The real bombshell, though, was in 2014 when Mt. Gox, the biggest Bitcoin exchange on the planet, gets hacked and just collapses, vaporizing hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. And this chaos hit them personally. Their own business partner, Charlie Shrem, the CEO of the very first crypto exchange they invested in, gets arrested by the FBI and sent to prison for money laundering. It must have felt like their entire new world was just crumbling around them. Okay, so now for the big payoff. Part 4, the billion-dollar bet. While pretty much everyone else was panicking and selling off their crypto for pennies, the twins did something different. They saw all this chaos as an opportunity. They held on, convinced that all this turmoil was just weeding out the bad guys. And this really breaks down their whole strategy. It's brilliant, really. Step 1, hold. Through all the chaos, they never sold a single coin. HODL, as they say. Step 2, see the opportunity. They looked at every market crash not as a disaster, but as a chance to make Bitcoin more legitimate. And step 3, build the future. They decided if the system was broken, they'd build a better one. So they founded their own regulated exchange, Gemini, to bring some actual trust to this lawless space. And their conviction? It paid off big time. By holding on tight through years of insane volatility, that $500 million Facebook settlement more than doubled. It turned them into the world's first publicly known Bitcoin billionaires, from outcasts to pioneers. So that brings up a really interesting question. In this new decentralized world, who actually controls Bitcoin now? Who are the biggest players on the field today?
Well, the single biggest holder is basically a ghost. We're talking about Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous creator of Bitcoin. Nobody knows who they are, and they're sitting on about 1 million coins. It's one of the biggest mysteries in tech. But we do know about some of the other heavy hitters.
And as you can see here, the Winklevoss twins are still way up there, one of the largest individual holders out there. They're in the same league as huge crypto companies like Tether, and even other big names like Tim Draper and Michael Saylor, and corporations like Tesla, who also saw the vision early on.
And what's really wild is that it's not just individuals and companies anymore. We've got entire countries, like El Salvador, making Bitcoin legal tender. And beyond the big players, you've got over 10 million Bitcoin held by just regular people. The general public. That's where the real network is.
So when you think about it, the twins' story really comes full circle. They were kicked out of one centralized system, Silicon Valley's walled garden, and ended up making their fortune in a completely decentralized one. It's an incredible lesson in finding value where nobody else is even looking. And it leaves us with a huge question. What does that tell us about where power and value are going to come from next? Thanks for joining this explainer.